Remember all those predictions about the internet back in the 80s?
Yeah.
Computers in every home,
Mm-hmm.
shopping online,
Mm-hmm.
even finding dates through a screen. It all sounded crazy back then.
Right.
But look at us now.
Absolutely.
Today's topic has that same future is now feeling to it. Genetic engineering.
Oh, yeah.
You, our amazing listeners, sent in some seriously thought-provoking articles on this.
Great.
So we're diving deep
Okay.
into a world where we might be able to design babies, cure any disease,
Wow.
and maybe even aging itself? I know, right? Sounds like science fiction.
It does.
But it was all based on real science. Wild.
It is wild. But it's also important we approach this with a critical eye. I mean, we're talking about reshaping life as we know it.
No small feat.
Exactly. Understanding both the power and the possible pitfalls is crucial here.
So let's unpack this. Humans have been tinkering with genes for centuries, haven't we?
Yeah.
I mean, think about dog breeds. You've got those fluffy sheepdogs, tiny teacup pigs. We've been selectively breeding animals for specific traits forever.
Forever, yeah.
But we didn't really understand the how until the discovery of DNA, the instruction manual for all living things.
The blueprint, yeah. And once we crack that code, well, we humans, we're curious creatures.
Always got to be poking around.
Always. In the 60s, scientists were basically bombarding plants with radiation, just hoping some beneficial mutation would pop up.
You just throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Exactly. It was a very hit-or-miss approach.
Sounds a bit chaotic.
Yeah.
But it did lead to some interesting developments, right? Like super sweet oranges.
Yeah, like those.
Then in the 70s, things got a little more precise.
Okay.
Scientists started inserting specific snippets of DNA into bacteria, plants, even animals.
Yeah.
That's how we got the first genetically modified animal in 1974, a little mouse that changed research forever.
It did. And the 80s ushered in the commercialization of genetic engineering. That first patent for an oil-eating microbe.
Oh, right.
That was huge. Now we use engineered organisms to create things like insulin, which, used to be extracted from animal organs.
Wow. Talk about progress.
It's remarkable how far we've come.
We can't forget the flower sauver tomato, 1994.
Right?
The first genetically modified food sold commercially.
The one that started it all.
Talk about a conversation starter. That really kicked off the whole debate about genetically modified foods, which, honestly, that deserves its own deep dive someday.
It really does. But, while all these advancements were remarkable, the early techniques were, well, they were expensive, slow, complicated. Imagine trying to edit a giant encyclopedia with a typewriter.
Oh, yeah. That's a good analogy.
It was a really tedious process.
So what changed the game? Did someone invent like a DNA word processor or something?
Well, not quite, but something even more revolutionary came along. CRISPR.
CRISPR, okay.
This technology has made gene editing 99% cheaper. Think about it. Imagine taking your weekly grocery bill and slashing it by 99%.
I like the sound of that. So CRISPR made gene editing accessible to practically everyone.
Pretty much, yeah. Experiments that used to take years can now be done in just weeks. It's incredible. And, well, this accessibility has, it has two sides to it, of course.
There's always a trade-off.
Always. It's fantastic for driving innovation, but it also raises concerns about, well, who has access and what they might do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm getting both excited and a little bit nervous here. But before we dive into all that, can you break down how this CRISPR thing actually works for those of us who don't have a PhD in genetics?
Okay, sure. Imagine this. Bacteria and viruses, they're constantly battling it out, right?
An epic battle.
Bacteria have this clever defense mechanism called CRISPR.
Okay.
When a virus attacks a bacterium, the bacterium can take a piece of the virus's DNA and store it in a CRISPR archive.
Like a most wanted poster.
Exactly, for future viral attacks.
So next time that same virus tries to invade.
The bacterium uses its CRISPR archive to create an RNA guide for a special protein called Cas9.
Cas9.
Yeah. Now, Cas9 is like tiny molecular scissors. They can be programmed to find and cut a specific sequence of DNA.
So it's a super precise DNA surgeon.
You got it. Cas9 uses that RNA guide to find the matching virus DNA and snip it out, stops the virus in its tracks. The real breakthrough was realizing We could reprogram this system, give Cas9 any DNA target we want to modify, not just viruses.
So we're not just limited to fighting off viruses.
No.
We can target anything.
Anything. It's like upgrading from a clunky paper map to a super accurate GPS for gene editing.
That's a huge leap. So CRISPR is basically a find and replace tool for DNA, but ridiculously precise and easy to use. And this works on anything, from bacteria to humans.
That's right. It's a game changer.
Wow.
And we're only scratching the surface here. Scientists are already working on even more precise tools.
Wow, it sounds like things are moving really fast.
They are, yeah. We're going to be talking about some of those new tools in just a minute, but first, let's look at some of the things we can already do with CRISPR. Things like targeting diseases.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about that. So we can potentially target all sorts of things with this technology.
Right.
Diseases, for example.
Absolutely. One area with immense potential is the fight against viruses.
Okay.
In 2015, scientists successfully used CRISPR to cut the HIV virus out of infected human cells.
In the lab.
Yeah, in the lab. Then, in 2016, they removed over 50% of the virus from rats.
So we could potentially eradicate HIV and other viruses that insert their genetic material into ours. Retroviruses, if I remember correctly.
You're right. Retroviruses, they're notoriously difficult to get rid of because they become part of our DNA.
Right.
But with CRISPR, we might finally have a way to eliminate them entirely.
Yeah.
And not just viruses. Think about cancer.
Okay, yeah.
CRISPR could allow us to edit our own immune cells, essentially training them to become super efficient cancer hunters.
So we could program our bodies to fight cancer from within.
It's a fascinating field with incredible potential.
It really is.
I remember reading about the first human trials for CRISPR cancer treatment back in 2016. And that same year, scientists in China began using modified immune cells to treat patients with lung cancer. It's all moving so fast.
And it's not just cancer and viruses. There are over 3,000 genetic diseases caused by, like, a single error, a single letter in someone's DNA. CRISPR has the potential to cure all of them.
Imagine a future where those diseases are just a distant memory.
It's an amazing thought.
It is, but you know, all the applications we've talked about so far, they're limited to the individual.
Okay.
These edits wouldn't be passed down to their children. What if we could use CRISPR on reproductive cells or embryos?
That brings us to designer babies.
Exactly.
A topic that sparks a lot of debate. Just how far along is this technology?
Well, the technology to edit human embryos already exists. It was attempted twice in China.
Oh, right.
In 2015 and 2016. While those attempts were met with controversy, well, they demonstrate what's possible. Think about it. Modified humans passing their engineered traits down through generations, potentially changing the entire human gene pool over time.
That's kind of mind-blowing. It's like something out of science fiction.
But it's a reality we need to prepare for. It's a slippery slope. It might start with eliminating deadly diseases, but then what? Perfect eyesight, enhanced athleticism. Where do we draw the line between therapy and enhancement?
Yeah, where do we draw that line? Is this a future where parents can choose their child's traits?
It's a question we have to ask ourselves.
A future where designer babies become the norm. What does that mean for humanity?
That's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've talked about the amazing potential, right? Curing diseases, extending lifespans, even modifying humans like to adapt to different environments.
Yeah.
But let's face it, there's a darker side to this. What about misuse?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm betting some of our listeners are thinking about like dystopian sci-fi scenarios right now.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's definitely something that we have to think about. Like, imagine a world where some totalitarian regime gets its hands on this technology.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this.
Could they create a society divided by engineered traits, you know, with a genetically modified elite ruling over everyone else? Or engineer soldiers with, like, enhanced strength?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Enhanced strength and obedience, programmed to follow orders without question.
That's a pretty chilling thought. I mean, it sounds like something out of a movie.
It does, and that's exactly why open discussion is so important, and ethical guidelines, responsible development, all of that.
So are you saying that, like, banning the tech would solve the problem?
Probably not. It might even make things worse. I mean, banning it wouldn't necessarily prevent those scenarios. It could just push the research underground, away from public scrutiny.
Okay, so if we can't just ban it, how do we navigate this? How do we ensure, I guess, that genetic engineering is used for good, you know, and not for creating some kind of dystopian future?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's a complex challenge, one that requires global cooperation,
Yeah.
ongoing dialogue. We need robust international regulations, ethical frameworks
Mm.
developed by, well, scientists, ethicists, policymakers, all working together, and perhaps most importantly, an informed and engaged public.
Well, that's us.
That's you guys. It's
Yeah.
not just about understanding the science, It's
Yeah.
about grappling with the consequences and forming your own informed opinions. This tech is going to affect everyone.
No one's immune.
No one. And so everyone needs a voice in shaping its future.
Right. We need to start talking about this.
Exactly. We need to be asking ourselves some tough questions here. What limits should we place on genetic engineering? Who should have access?
Yeah, good question.
How do we prevent discrimination based on genetic traits?
Those are all huge questions for, I guess, society as a whole to figure out.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's an easy answer. And different cultures and societies, they might come to different conclusions, right?
Absolutely. But those conversations, they need to start happening now, not after the technology is, fully mature and
Yeah.
widespread.
It's a bit like the internet back in the 80s. No one could have predicted the full impact, the good and the bad. We're at a similar crossroads with genetic engineering.
A crossroads where we have the power to redefine what it means to be human.
Wow.
It's both exhilarating and daunting.
We've talked about curing diseases, extending lifespans, even modifying ourselves for different environments. What about enhancing our minds?
Our minds.
Yeah, like, could we engineer humans with greater intelligence or creativity or empathy?
That's a fascinating frontier, but one filled with ethical complexities. I mean, what does it even mean to enhance intelligence? Who gets to decide what's an improvement?
And what's, like, normal? We could end up creating a whole new kind of inequality.
Yeah.
A society divided not by, wealth or social status,
Yeah.
but by cognitive ability.
And it makes you question the human experience. I mean, what role does struggle play or imperfection in our development?
Really?
If we engineer those aspects away, do we lose something essential about what makes us human?
I mean, are we even human at that point?
Right. Those are big questions, philosophical questions. And I don't think there are any easy answers.
Yeah, no easy answers.
But they're questions we can't afford to ignore as we venture into this uncharted territory, which brings us back to you, our listener.
Yeah.
This technology, it's coming, and it will have a huge impact on you, your children, future generations.
Yeah.
The choices we make today, they'll shape the future of humankind.
That's a lot of responsibility. But, we encourage you to keep exploring this topic, engage in these conversations, help shape this future. Don't shy away from the complexity or the ethical dilemmas. This isn't just about science. It's about the world we want to live in and what it means to be human in this new age, the age of genetic engineering.
We started this deep dive by comparing genetic engineering to the internet back in the 80s.
Right.
And just as the internet transformed, well, everything really, communication, information, commerce, genetic engineering has the potential to revolutionize healthcare, agriculture, even our understanding of what it means to be human. But with this power comes responsibility.
A lot of responsibility.
A lot.
It's up to all of us to make sure this technology is used wisely and ethically so its benefits reach all of humanity, not just a select few.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of genetic engineering.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope it's been informative, thought-provoking, maybe even a bit inspiring. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep shaping the future.